I assume that means you have the host key then.
Yeah, but feel free to. I saw you updated your name as a host, so feel free to continue with that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll maybe I'll let you run the show next week. And I figured
Yeah.
I threw a bunch of topics up there, so I'm like, all right, I might as well. All right. So I always forget how to claim the host key. Um, or or maybe you have to pass it to me since you're the host and you've joined. Maybe that's what we
No,
want to
you
do.
you can also join, and then we are co-hosting.
No, once someone claims host, you can't, like
Okay,
you have to
so
share.
I should I? Okay, so now it's you.
All right, cool. Let me,
Yeah.
let me pull up the agenda really quick, share my screen, get all this stuff set. So share. All right, everyone should be able to see my screen. We'll kick things off. All right. Thanks everyone for joining the Gateway API Inference Extension weekly meeting for August 28th, 2025. My name is Damian Hanson, one of the maintainers. I'll be running today's meeting, and the meeting and the project is governed by CNCF. So we follow those rules. Essentially, what that means: be kind to one another, respectful. And I think everyone has been doing that in the community, so we really appreciate that. And we'll just keep it going forward. So everyone should be able to see my screen. I've added some agenda topics here. I see Sanjeev has one as well. And if you'd like to add something to the agenda, feel free to do so at the bottom of the list. And hopefully we'll have time to get to it. All right, as always, every week we kind of go back to last week's action items and make sure that we're following through with the things that we say we're going to do. So let's take a quick look at that. And luckily for all of us, except for Kellen, he's the only one with action items. So Kellen, do you mind taking a moment and just giving us a quick update on these action items?
Yes, everything but the release cadence. We've kind of talked about it. I didn't spin up the discussion. Traffic splitting feasibility, I think we're putting off for now. That's an Envoy decision. We can revisit that longer form. The V1 RC timeline somewhat speaks for itself as it's out now. The release cadence, I do still want to talk about. I'm going to spin up a discussion literally right now so I don't forget. But that doesn't need to happen. There's no level of urgency there quite yet.
Cool. And Kellen, if there's any links or any context that you can add to this, just in case anyone comes back to the meeting notes, that'd be much appreciated.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Daniel, just a
Yeah,
question before we
sure.
move forward. So, Kellen, about traffic splitting. So, yeah, we have decided to put this aside at this point. I assume this also means the same about model rewrite.
Yeah. So model rewrite, at least so if you were planning on using the HTTP route to do it, that won't work. It still works in EPP.
Yeah.
You can still do it if you pass the header, but if you plan on having it in HTTP route, right now we can't do that. There are options to adjust Envoy, but understood that that's a behavior that would affect quite a bit of people. We're also going to we talked internally. I'm glad you brought this up. We're going to discuss how we want to handle this going forward, maybe a more, the proper solution, whether that's in the APIs, if we spin up another CRD, we need to discuss that and figure out what we want to do.
Yeah, so I know the answer. I asked intentionally because I want the other community members here in the call to be aware of that as well. So yeah, definitely let's I don't think it's that important for talking about this in this meeting, but let's try to set something for next meeting to talk about this topic.
Cool. All right. Next on the list is just wanted to do a quick PSA that RC1 has been cut. So really appreciate folks that have time to kick the tires on it and give any feedback, positive or negative. It's just to make sure that we're trying to cover our bases before cutting the final release. With that said, too, we do have a release milestone. Let me pull it up really quick here. So it would be this one right here. And I wanted to just kind of go through, do kind of a quick burn down of this list. By doing so, should give us an understanding of kind of where we're at. And then also, as you see here, 1.0 is actually supposed to be cut on the 27th. And so we need to come up with a new date, since unless we're planning on cutting the 1.0 release today. So first things first, let's just kind of go through this list. Definitely high on the list, as you can see here, with 195 discussion topics here. I think that's I'm sure that doesn't land in the top 1% of Kubernetes API reviews, but I'm thinking it might be in the top 10 to 15% of discussion topics.
Yeah. Many thanks to Rob. Yeah, many thanks for bringing this call.
Yeah. No, thanks everyone for the help on this. We did finally get the sign off yesterday, so we're good on API side. It's been a process, but we have made it. So I think the API as it is, or actually, I can't actually remember if she used PR merged, but there was one PR that was basically addressing the two outstanding bits of feedback that we linked here, and this PR is based on. I think that's merged, but I need to double check. But anyway, whatever that the state of this PR and the corresponding PR to get this in, I think represents the v1.0 API. I really don't want to make any changes at this point because we've got the approval as it sits, and let's just not touch it. So yeah.
So a couple things. So I see Tim left the LGTM and approve. Who else was reviewing this? Is it?
It was Antonio. But Antonio mentioned he was just going to defer to Tim. I know like there have been a bunch of people involved, like leaving comments, particularly Joel. But that's mostly about the linting behavior. I don't think it's opinionated about the API surface itself.
Yeah, I would consider that non-blocking, and if it becomes blocking, I think we would just remove the linter rather than change the API.
Are there any follow-ups on this? Right. I know there was some things where we're like, okay, let's address this now. Let's wait. So I just want to make sure if there's any follow-ups. Maybe Rob can help out with making sure that we've got all the follow-ups as issues and so forth.
So I think the biggest change that happened yesterday, or has not merged yet, but it's I'll link this in the agenda actually while I thinking about this. So as a sub point to this one, or no, sorry, I guess this one. This is the PR that makes the changes that were requested by Tim, and the most noticeable one, I think, is going to be that the port number in endpoint picker ref is now required effectively. It's a little bit of funniness where we were really trying to avoid this case where we required the port number all the time because we want to be able to support arbitrary backends where port may not be useful or meaningful. Like, a backend type that only has one port, why would you need to specify that port? It's not really helpful. So yeah, that is one of the changes in here. The thing that we ended up agreeing to is mirroring what Gateway API does verbatim, and that is to require port when the target is service and leave it optional otherwise. So that kind of, one gives us consistency with the other APIs in this space, and two leaves us room for that flexibility of supporting some custom backends where port may not be meaningful. Yeah, so hopefully this one's okay. As far as action items, we could, Tim was uncomfortable with what we had before, which was an inferred default, which said when controllers see port unspecified, they should default to 9002, which is the default port of endpoint picker. And now we're just saying, no, users actually need to set this themselves. I think it's fine. It is more consistent with other APIs, but yeah, I think that's the main change here.
It is kind of interesting that we selected a default port for the endpoint picker, but the API for the endpoint picker rep can't align with the default port.
I know. I went back and forth on it, and it's hard to undo a default, and our default endpoint picker port does seem pretty arbitrary. So
yeah,
what Tim suggested as a follow-up is fair. That instead of the thing that he was most uncomfortable with is the idea that we would have a inferred default. It's fine to have an API level default. It was uncomfortable to have a default that was inferred by a controller. And so a AI or follow-up item we could have here is, as mutating admission policies become more widespread and available, we can recreate that defaulting behavior, but at an API level instead. So we may end up taking a circuitous path back to roughly the same behavior as those mutating emission policies are more widely available. But yeah, I think it's just a more correct way to do this in terms of kube API.
Couldn't you just use the Kubernetes machinery, API machinery default stuff?
Yes, you could, but the problem is we're trying to leave room out there. Like there's no way to do conditional defaulting in Kubernetes. So if, for example, we target, I don't know, like one of the things that seems pretty concrete to me is this idea that you're going to want a way to configure a local endpoint picker, something like that's running right alongside your data plane. I don't know what that probably is an object ref to somewhere. And in that case, the port number is potentially not meaningful because you may be using like a socket or something to connect, and so given that, I am uncomfortable with the idea of a broad default port.
I mean, it's code. The default stuff is code. It's not just values, right? You could have code that looked at the kind or the reference kind and then did the quote unquote right thing.
Yeah, and so we had previously we had a recommendation in the spec that controllers look at this and infer a default of 9002. That was kind of went against kube API standards, conventions, whatever. and there's no way to do conditional defaulting with CRDs today, but there will be. I mean, there is, but it's alpha. It's the mutating admission policy. But as that becomes more broadly available, we can.
No, but you can add defaults, then you get you get this call to this default function that can set defaults, can't you?
Not in a CRD anyway.
I did.
You can't.
In one iteration of the configuration stuff, which is using the CRD machinery to read. It's not really a CRD, but CRD machinery.
Right. So you can absolutely infer a default on controller level, but that's what we were uncomfortable with. You can, if you're doing an upstream Kubernetes API, you have all kinds of flexibility in terms of how you set a default value. But for CRDs, it's just this static default, which was not sufficient here.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's suboptimal. I don't love the change, but it is correct. I guess correct, and it does. We have a pretty clear path back to defaulting when mutating admission policies are supposed to be beta in 134, which is right around the corner. So like this is not that far away. So yeah.
So Rob, maybe you want to just create an issue that links to here and just says, hey, let's revisit this when mutating admission policies are ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, others take a look at this. The other talking point I think here is, so this changes the API. It feels like we need to cut an RC2 before the final release. I mean, at least from my standpoint, is I just want to ensure that we have something stable that we could run conformance tests again. I mean, I guess we could run it against this commit, but I don't know, just something to throw out there. I want to make sure that we don't cut the final release and we've got a bug that slips in that we haven't run performance tests in. Here?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on this PR. So we also need to make sure we update all the YAMLs that use the inference pool to use the.
And that's where I've seen bugs slip in. That's where I've seen the bugs slip in.
Yeah, before before we cut the next RC. Yeah.
Do we? So I guess the question is, I guess we don't need to answer it here, but we need to think about, do we cut an RC2 again? I lean towards just cutting an RC2, but maybe it's something that we can discuss offline since we're 23 minutes into the meeting.
I have a topic in the agenda similar to this. I was just going to wait.
Okay, yeah. Let's really quick. No, that's not what I want. I want to come back over. I lost my. Let me go back here really quick. So, spent quite a bit of time going through this, which we expected. Coordinate gateway implementations. I recently updated this, but again, probably need to do another update that ran conformance tests using K-Gateway. K-Gateway actually supports the 2 different data planes and tested both and passed conformance. But haven't seen any updates from the other conformant implementations. But I think what we said is, hey, let's at least make sure we've got one gateway implementation passing conformance test. So that's why I wanted to share this here. What else do we have? Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
Bob, not to put you on the spot, but I think we're pretty close to passing on GK side if we aren't already.
Yes, we just Yeah, the current we have the staging, and I'm gonna test the staging
Great.
this today. Yeah.
Cool. That's great news.
The
Yeah.
the API changes are behaviorally neutral for conformance, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just requires you to shuffle a bunch of things around. Behavior is the same. It's just
Cool.
The fields are slightly changed, and what I noticed here just a few weeks ago is, one of the API changes that weren't reflected in the manifest of conformance tests, and one of the conformance tests was failing, and that's what I really want to try to avoid, and why, whether it's a commit SHA or if we cut an RC2, something that we make sure that now that, when that when this, oh no, not that PR, when the PR for making that port changes or merges, that make sure that we've got, again, one conformant or one implementation that's passing the conformance test, either against RC2 or against that commit SHA, to make sure we don't have any bugs that slip into the conformance test. Okay, so inference model update, document all new changes. Helen, anything that you can share with
Yeah,
us?
we're chopping through that. I got sidetracked because I wanted to do the scale testing. I found some issues there and was investing time there. But I can get back on this. Just trying to juggle a few different things, getting this RC validated. If anyone wants to help, sees anything, feel free to cut a PR. I won't be offended at all.
Yeah, maybe that's something that if you want to as well, just ping the channel and link to this and say, hey, if anyone has any cycles, help here or there. You did mention something that caught my eye the other day when I saw it. You're saying that there's some issues with performance or scale testing against RC1. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, and you filed an issue for that?
Yep. There's some investigation there.
Okay, if you have that up anywhere, if you could just link it to this milestone, so it's just make sure that
I'll probably, the RC validation one has a bunch of child issues. I'll probably link it to the scale testing one there, just to keep it all connected.
Yep. Oh, the scale testing for the EPP. All right, so anything, let's see, curious what's going on here with Ellen. Okay. And then you mentioned, okay, but this is essentially related to the scale testing issue that you were talking about, right?
This was the initial scale testing. I should have closed this. I did one against V0.5.1 to have a baseline, which I'm glad I did because, comparing to now, it's easier to identify the issues. But we can close this. I think we commented everything, and I have a new issue for scale testing the RC.
All right, I'll let you close this and maybe link to that other issue that you're talking about, cool. So we have that context chain. Near, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was actually raising it in the topic of the conformance tests. So I know that, no worries. I know that for getting inference pool for GA, we need 3 conformant gateways. So now I wanted to ask, I don't think Istio is at this point, they are ready with the conformance report for V1, but
they should be. I actually, sorry to jump in there, Neil, but I actually submitted a PR that I had been working on for the last week or so, and then it merged, I think, just yesterday. Now the last piece is that I was actually trying to do right now before the call was actually running the conformance test. And we have some tooling within the repo. Shmuel, I see that you updated tooling for conformance for Istio on Mac OS. And I'm still actually haven't.
That was to try to run it locally, but it's not complete. It's only partial.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm trying to go through that and having some issues making that happen. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, we should be
Yes.
there. We just need to run it and make sure that it's still conforming, but I expect it to be.
Yeah, so that's great to know. I haven't seen any PR for a conformance report from them, and that was the reason I'm raising this. But having said that, I have heard you said both gateways that are on top of K gateway that is also agent gateway. Both of them are passing conformance tests. So the next question was, can we consider them as two different gateways for the sake of these requirement, or we cannot?
Yeah, no, I mean, so we're actually way ahead of where we'd be. So these graduation criteria were just from Gateway API itself. And in Gateway API, what we mean by multiple conformant implementations, or what we've meant, is multiple conformant implementations based on the previous release, right? Not on the
Great.
Yeah, you can't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, we're actually ahead of schedule here. The idea that we're likely to have 3+ conformant implementations before we even release this, like just based on release candidates, is amazing.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Yeah,
and it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if we've got X number of conformant implementations for the previous release, there's a high likelihood that those same implementations will move forward with conformance.
As long as the changes in the CRD didn't affect the conformance suite, so that's fine. Yeah.
But I can tell you, I've been working on the K gateway side for the last couple weeks to make sure that it stays on top of Maine. And as we all know, who are involved in the 1.0 inference pool API review, a lot of changes happened in the last couple weeks.
That was definitely quite the moving target. Although the actual API didn't change, that, like, all the Go types were just pointers, non-pointers, back and forth, and all over the place, and just some fields got renamed.
So I was juggling both the Istio and the K gateway, and the K gateway for both data planes, and it was that was a lot of fun. So little to say, like, moving forward, I don't know if I expect to do that. So we'll probably wait for for the finalization of the API and then jump through all those hoops.
Yeah, that's fair. Hopefully we're not changing inference pool too much for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect so. All right, I don't think there's any hands. All right, so let's see here. Inference pool result should assert default. Oh, I think this just, I'll go ahead and let me close this. I'll do that here after the call, but this is resolved. We don't need that anymore. Add the API docs generators to the release. This is pretty simple. I'm not sure if
it might not be. The release, the way we do it now, we do everything in our release branch, but the docs that we generate, we want to generate in Maine. So there was a PR cut, but we might just have to change our release script. It's not that big of a deal, but it just might not be that straightforward, and you just have to do it manually.
Why are you generating this docs from Maine? They may be ahead of the release branch.
Yeah, because that's where our site lives. Our site source of truth is Maine.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think Danny and someone at Solo had been working on version docs. I don't think we got through, we got anywhere too far on that yet.
No version docs still in its art, and I think he was just hitting some issues with some of the the upstream machinery to do docs, and I just wonder if maybe just temporarily we need to have docs live off of like the latest release branch or something. I'll try circling back with Art, but I've had so much else going on that I haven't been able to support him or help him get unstuck. But Kellen, back to your point here is, like, if it's not as simple as just kind of adding the docs API docs generator targets to the release target in the make file, even if it's just as simple as just adding a step in the release.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we don't forget to do that. But I guess also to your point is it doesn't necessarily matter since docs are living off of main right now. I can circle back around here to this as well and maybe add some context and close that out.
Yeah. And like Shmuel mentioned, it's the docs, because it's generated off main. I suppose, yeah, actually, how the hell would you do that? You could go to your branch, generate it, copy the files, and then put them over in main, but I don't like that. And then I guess you could say this version. Maybe this isn't the worst thing ever. We could do that. Where the spec, we have a list of versions. It would be kind of arduous to do, but maybe not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I know, like with the last release and then right after release, I think it was, if my memory serves me correctly, we made changes from inference model to inference objective. And there was a few people that I noticed on the Slack channel that were having issues, right? Because the docs give one option for the latest dev, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I think we just need to have steps documented, whether it's in the main branch or whatever, that just show, hey, here's what using the latest release. Otherwise, I feel like I don't know if people are gonna keep having issues following the docs.
Yeah, it just puts a lot of maintenance work on people updating the docs, and limited capacity.
Right.
Version docs would be the optimal. But.
Yeah. All right. V1RC validation. So these are all sub issues here, right? And it looks like we've got people assigned to all but a couple. So if anyone is here that can take on one of these outstanding issues, that would be much appreciated. And with that said, right, we got 0 of 11 complete. Are we essentially saying, hey, we need to go through and check all these boxes before we cut the release?
Yeah. I don't feel good about pushing a binary without seeing these checked.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
It looks
so
like,
again, go ahead.
It looks like we have people assigned to all of them already. Is that correct? Or?
All but I think 2. This unless
Yeah, we have people working on it.
So this should be an easy one, right? If you have GPUs, that should be pretty easy. This we definitely need to validate. I haven't even touched any of the HA stuff, but okay, cool. I see you've pinged the folks that were actually involved in the HA stuff, so they, in my opinion, are the best people to take this on. Cool.
So a question about this this issue. So as far as I understand, so this is a set of tests that should be done on every release. So does it make sense to add it to the release issue template so that we have like a checklist that we need to go through before we announce that an RC can become a final release?
I mean, better yet, I'd like to automate all this. Part of the accelerated release timeline, I'd love to figure out how much of this we can automate. Part of moving quickly is sometimes the nice to haves get dropped. So right now we're doing it manually. It sucks. It sucks. That's basically all there is to say about it. But I think putting it on the release script puts the onus on a single maintainer, and that makes me sad to think about. So maybe we just automate this. I definitely want to do it for 1.0. I'm wondering for minor releases. Well, I guess we can have regression testing. This should be part of the discussion, I think, in our release discussion. I'll add that there.
Yeah. So just to make my point, I And the intention was not to say that whoever owns the release should run through all the validation tests himself, of course. And obviously, we do need to automate as much as possible. But the intention is to kind of have a checklist, and mainly for transparency, even if we don't run all the tests, we know to say that, for example, we tested the GPU and the CPU examples, but we haven't tested BBR. And we decided to go through final release, but it's like it's transparent information. Whoever uses that minor release should know that we haven't tested BBR in this release. So it's not necessarily that we have to go through all the tests, but it's more about transparency, that which tests were done for this release.
Yeah, hopefully we can get all of this automated in
Yeah.
time. You know, what I like about the current release template issue is it's like just very focused on like the release manager releasing, right? And going through all those steps and not adding kind of more to it. And so I would almost be in favor, if it's possible, using like, you know, the GitHub API or something, is like when we create a new milestone, that it automatically kind of creates this type of issue in the sub issues or something along those lines.
So I wanted to, just because you're bringing that up, the milestones are tough because there's not really a place to comment. And so I'm wondering if, I mean, I guess we could do a milestone, but the milestone is just a single issue, and that issue is really like the release tracker. So then you can discuss, you can add text, we could add those checklists to like a release candidate issue. So then it's, I guess it would be the best of both worlds. Does that sound okay to people? Essentially, it's just creating a level of indirection to the milestones so that we can get the features that issues have.
I want to make sure I understand your point. So you're saying the issue with milestones, you can't have a conversation related to the milestone. So you're saying that if we're going to use milestone, continue to have like a meta issue that we can use related to the release.
Yeah, and if people want, like if milestones is familiar to someone, we can still attach that single meta issue to the milestone so that they know how to go find what they're looking for. But yeah, most of it would be centralized in that issue. So there's comments of like, this is why a date slipped. This is what we're thinking. This is what's going on. Let's adjust, you know, add the list, add this checklist. Because right now milestones only hold issues. And we might want more than that. That's just all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, it should hold PRs too. I mean, I definitely see what you're saying. So, you know, what I've always liked about milestones is it's just an easy way to go and look, right? If we go to the milestones, really quick.
Yeah, and you lose the percentage portion, and I get that, but
it's just, you know, that high level view, like, okay, like I could just go here and say, okay, we're tracking on that release, right? And then be able to just drill down kind of like what we're doing here. But I also like that we do have kind of a meta issue that says, you know, here's our checklist before, you know, before we release. But we should be able to add any issues or PRs here. And but yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to having a meta issue, but I do like the, you know, I do like the milestones.
sure.
We can have both, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, is you can still set this up, but a lot of them would hang off the primary issue.
All right. Sanjeev, just hang tight really quick because I want to bounce to Kellen because this is related to releasing. Kellen, did we discuss this topic already, or did you want to shed more light on?
I wanted to bring this up because so the API has lag time. The EPP binary does not, right? Like once we release it, people can go use it. But the API, I know it has lag time because gateway maintainers want to have something that, yeah, I don't blame you for not wanting to deal with the churn of of trying to stay up to date with an API review. So I would love to, figure out what is the preferred way for gateway maintainers to receive the API, so we could cut something that would have, I would basically not promote any images and just have the API definition. So then you could use that branch that should have up-to-date conformance tests. So you could run it on there. You have a frozen API, and then that lets us take time to validate our EPP binary. So then we can kind of disjoint the lag time.
My vote here would be sometime, hopefully today, we cut RC2 and we have some basic agreement that the API is frozen at RC2, and that is, from the perspective of API, what we're releasing at 1.0, but we're going to hold off on 1.0 until endpoint picker, BBR, whatever already. But the RC2 is effectively the 1.0 release for API. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. I was also thinking we could do a separate branch, separate tag, and the tag just has a suffix of like API only. So I'm not promoting any images on that tag, or we're not promoting any images on that tag. But I'm cool with whatever. Whatever works for you guys works for me.
Yeah, plus one is just cutting RC2, and when we cut RC2, that's going to be off the tip of main. We're not going to just. Well, go ahead.
I was planning on cherry picking, but
okay, just cherry picking the API changes.
Yeah, I didn't want to yank everything in because I was telling Rob this. I can't guarantee a freeze on the binary, so I wanted to cherry pick in specific things that just to keep the V1 RC frozen, and then let other people continue to submit work, because I know flow control work, SLO work is coming in. Some folks from LLMD are trying to get features in, and I don't necessarily want to include that in V1.
Yeah, +1 on cherry picking. Only the API changes and
Fixes.
showstoppers. Yeah, bug fixes like the crash in the scale test.
Mm-hmm. There's one I didn't include the pprof endpoint in the Helm chart. It's in the documentation, but not in the Helm chart. But since we're trying to make the Helm chart the way you deploy, it needs to be in there. So that needs to go too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say any conformance test. So just go through the list since we cut RC1 and just be careful, right? So that's my only concern, is that we cut RC2, and we're missing something because we cherry picked. But yeah, just I would say be really careful and make sure we include any conformance changes as well.
Sounds good. I'll work with Bob to make sure we get those in.
All right, Sanjeev. Let's see, initial discussion on BBR extension. Extended. Do you want to give us maybe a quick rundown of what we got here?
Yeah, so this is a follow-up on a topic I had sort of initiated a couple of weeks ago. And it looked like it needed a little bit more textual backing up. Obviously, we don't have time to go into it, so we would appreciate your feedback both on the document and, if possible, maybe a quick meeting on this. Okay, so although it's described as BBR features, it's not exclusively tied to BBR. It is more about model-aware routing, which currently largely resides in this BBR package that we have, but it could also be done in EPP, as Abdullah's traffic redirect proposal is also doing. So it's sort of related to that. So I'm going to, for now, you can look at, I think the use cases are relatively clear to people who've sort of worked in the space. So I'll skip over that. I'll just, for today's call, just go over that list starting below that 1, 2, 3, 4 list. If you can just scroll, and we can just end with what we would like to have going forward, right? So if we look at this space, we think that there's just sort of completing whatever limited version of BBR we currently have. And that's mostly documentation work. But also deciding in the community whether we intend, whether we have an intention for BBR to be a supported feature going forward. Is it on the track of deprecation or whatever? I feel like there's a little bit of ambiguity on this that would be good to clear up. Assuming though that this is very much a valid feature that the community will continue to support, then we will just sort of, dot the I's and cross the T's on whatever is remaining with BBR, and that's it for item 1. Item 2 then is, and then each of these, depending on whichever, depending on the community feedback, this could be followed up with a more detailed proposal on one or more of these topics. Item 2 is, BBR is very much a valid and long-term supported feature, and there are potentially valuable enhancements that could be done. One of those enhancements is to parse out additional content from the body beyond just the model name, right? So today's BBR function extracts the model name from the body to do additional kinds of security and policy-oriented functions. We could be extracting additional content from the body and then mapping those into X headers for either the gateway or other plugins to process. Okay. So here the BBR enhancement would be to parse out additional content and optionally take action on those, but at a very minimum, pass those back to the gateway to either do routing or filtering decisions. Okay, so those are the main two. Now, 3 and 4 are a little bit long-term, but I want to highlight 4 because it sort of relates back to Abdullah's traffic redirect and traffic splitting kind of proposal, where he appears to be proposing adding body-based routing and model name redirect into EPP. And that's kind of what we're saying here with item number 4 here as well, which is, would the community prefer that rather than BBR be a standalone module, its functionality actually gets combined into EPP? There's obviously pros and cons here, but should that be the case, and maybe one reason would be performance, so that you don't have to process the body twice, once in BBR and once in EPP. Then this would sort of align with some of the ideas from Abdullah's proposal. Also, we could then provide some guidance on whether the pluggable scheduler framework of EPP could also then be used for functions which are body-based routing functions. I hesitate to use the word semantic routing because that's a bit of an overloaded term and people sort of have different interpretations of it. But I would just generally call them as body-based processing functions and routing and filtering functions. So we sort of listed these. So, okay, just for now, and then we've got a little bit more content here on sort of a little bit more on the item number 2 as to what exactly could we be processing, and could we do maybe truncated processing so that we don't have to parse long contexts and so on, or additional fields from the OpenAI parameters, which could also be passed back. For example, max output tokens so that you could do filtering actions based on the max tokens on a request. And we do have some use cases for doing policy decisions based on additional body content. So we didn't mean for this to be, we didn't want to go too far down this road before getting a feedback from you all and from the community on which one of these items is you know sounds more aligned with the community thinking, so that we can then work with you all to develop it further. And so starting really with, so the questions really are we continuing to support BBR as a sort of first class feature that is going to be supported? If so, then we could potentially, item number 2 is talking about additional content that we could extract from the body. And then item 3 I haven't talked about yet, but that's actually a bit more a broader framework here. But item 4 very much aligns with Abdullah's draft document. So maybe that they can be
So
analyzed together.
just 5 minutes left. I'm just hopping in. Just it sounded like you had some questions you wanted answered. The number 4, I actually don't agree that is part of Abdullah's proposal. The idea of BBR is to be at a different point in the listener chain intentionally. If we merge that all into EPP, you are saying you want one EPP for your whole gateway, and I'm worried about scale and about the cataclysm that would happen should EPP go down. If you separate pools, you can have many pools in your gateway, and if one EPP goes down, that's only a fraction of your pool set. If you have one EPP for an entire massive cluster and that goes down, all of those are out. And I don't, since we're dealing with bodies and we're potentially tokenizing, we're tracking events, prompts could be incredibly long. There's a lot of work we're doing here. So I love the ability to scale horizontally and encapsulate, reduce blast radius, that kind of thing. So I think 4 I would like to steer away from, because it sounds like what you're trying to tackle here is separate. And so I'd like to keep it separate. And I think David made a similar comment. But the rest of this I'd like to read through more deeply. But that one I definitely
we would definitely like to invite in order of these items. So item 1 is essentially a confirmation, which I believe what I'm hearing is that yes, BBR continues to be a it's not on the road to deprecation or anything like that. Although it's an experimental feature, it is a supported feature, and we could just continue to wrap it up and add the documentation and so on. And then in order of these items, get your feedback on item 2 in particular, which we can then develop into a formal proposal, which we could bring into a future call of this community.
Rob, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably just echoing what Ken was saying. Like 1 to 3 all look really promising to me. 1, yeah, for sure, definitely need that. Yeah, I agree on almost all points, and I saw comments I agree with on point 4. I really strongly believe that these need to be separate, endpoint picker and body-based routing, body-based scheduling, whatever we call it, feels like an intentionally separate part. And so I think our current architecture is correct there, and I'd rather move forward with that and the points you have above, without trying to merge everything into one big endpoint picking component. Having this,
I think it's a resounding 4 as a no-go. So
there's
a lot here, right? There's a lot here.
Yeah.
So number 1 is like, right, BBR, it's not an experimental feature. It's just functionality that's part of the project that, in my opinion, needs more TLC. So like even number one, like if we can just like get BBR, like improve the docs, you name it, right? So that would be a nice step forward. And then, Sanjeev, I think as you mentioned, like number two, like dial into this. I think for the most part, the folks involved in the project see this as a real use case that the world would want to see. So following up and maybe putting some more thought into what this would look like, I think we get some momentum there.
Yeah.
You guys are feeling like BBR isn't well documented?
No, just wanting to clarify
Just kidding.
because
It's not. I'm just teasing.
I'm like, wait a
You're
second,
very
what
correct.
did I miss out? I mean, I haven't looked at the docs
No,
recently, and
I
I know
don't think there is any.
I
I don't think there is any.
Yeah, it's like a little present that people find under the tree.
Yeah,
That's like way back
that's
there.
correct. Yeah. No,
You
one
got
is
me.
like,
You got me.
I almost want you to delete one because it's shameful to read, but it's absolutely correct.
yeah, I've actually picked up one of the BBR docs issues to work on.
That's thank you very much. Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so it sounds like the community believes that, and I think by the way we agree on 4 as well. I maybe I try to do kind of for completeness list out all possible options, and also it sort of seemed to connect with Abdullah's proposal. That's why we kind of kept it in there. But yes, we were also not inclined towards 4. In fact, even 3 is sort of a bit of a future thing. So that's why we sort of listed it in this order. So I think the takeaway here is that 1 is absolutely absolutely clear, and we should be completing that. 2, we can add more collateral on this, and potentially make a formal proposal. And then 3 and 4 seem like we invite your comments on these on this doc or on Slack, and we can treat those, especially 3 as a longish potential.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, 3 definitely. I think would be longer term. I think we'd want to see multiple use cases before we start to create pluggability.
Actually, I would have thought that 2 and 3 are related. That as you want to add more parsing capabilities, you want to be able to make it optional.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely that could be. So Shmuel, I was thinking the same thing, that 2 and 3 kind of could have some crossover. But again, I think being able to just have a follow-up where you dive into this area a little bit more and tease out the different use cases and ways to solve those use cases. But yeah, I mean, in general, this is really good to see, because I think BBR, there's a lot of opportunity for us to take it to the next level. So it'd be great to have someone really run with it.
One last
with
thing
that-
before we run out.
Yep.
I also would welcome your comments on this doc or on Slack or whatever on when do we want to get opinionated and when not to, because some of these then get into, like, again, that word which I've been hesitating to use, like semantic routing. Those are specific algorithms, right? And you don't want necessarily the upstream to be tied into a specific semantic routing algorithm or a specific semantic filtering algorithm, but you want to create the framework that allows that, and that sort of starts to look like pluggability. So your guidance, community guidance on where we want to be semi-opinionated and when not to be, that would be welcome.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. If you guys have multiple cases, I was just thinking it's much easier to develop a feature with a flag that just flips it off rather than developing a general framework that someone can adopt. The 2 can be related, but one's more work than the other for sure. So cool. Yeah, I'm happy to read this document. Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining the call today. Great discussion, and have a great day. We'll catch you online. Bye now.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye bye.